Hello students, welcome back. In this video, we are going to cover characteristics of databases. So these are the 5 characteristics of the databases as you can see over here. So the very first characteristics of the database is self-describing nature of the database system. So what do you mean by self-describing nature of the database system? That database system not only contains the database, but it also contains the information about the structure and the constraint of the database. So what do you mean by the information about the structure? So structure will contain the information related to, you can say, the different format or the different data type that particular, you can say, the database contains of. And then the constraints is what? The different conditions that we are going to impose on that particular database. So all that information is going to stored in the database. So ये information कहाँ पे store होता है, like which information, that structure and the constraint of the database, it is stored in the catalog of the database, and such catalog is called it as a metadata. That is the data about the data, means what kind of data is going to stored in that particular system. For example, like the index of your book, that is the metadata. So in the same way, what we have in the database system all the information about the structure and the constraint that are going to be imposed on that database. So now you will say कि why we need this information, like ये database का जो भी data का structure है और जो constraint है, why we need all this information? Because see, whenever like we are using the database system, so it is not made up for the specific application. ये कोई एक application को दिमाग में रख के नहीं बनाया है your database system, right? It is used for what? General purpose. General purpose means what? Like it is made up for every application. Means like each and every application can be designed with the help of, you can say, this database system. So database system is nothing but what? The actual software packages that we are going to use. तो ये general purpose के लिए है. Means so this structure जो ये self describing nature of database system है, so what it will do, it will help the application programmer or the database designer to understand the structure and the constraint imposed on that particular database system, and accordingly he will design his own application, his or her own application. So that's why this self-describing nature of the database system is considered as one of the characteristics, and which will help the application programmer and the database designer to see the structure and the constraint, and accordingly they can design their own application. So I think the self-describing nature of the database system is clear. We'll move to the next characteristics, that is insulation between the program and data. So what is insulation? That is protecting one thing from the another thing. So in this point, that is insulation between the programs and data means what? That our database system provide a facility, like suppose I want to define any new field, or you can say the new data item to that particular data. So in order to do that all the changes will be handled or will be reflected everywhere, and there is no need to change the programs accordingly. Means what? That whenever any changes made in that particular data or any new field or the new data item is added into that particular data, that is reflected everywhere. So every time there is no need to change the program according to the changes made in the data. So which is not possible with the traditional file system. जो file system हम लोग पहले use करते थे before DBMS were not into the picture. So that is in the early 1970s. That file system which comes with our conventional file system, which is now also which is there, right? So in that such facilities were not there. Like अगर वहाँ पे आपने एक file में change किया, so in order to handle all that changes, you need to change the entire program. जैसे suppose अगर मैं कुछ data यहाँ पे file में store कर रही हूँ student का data, and in that student file suppose I am adding a record, file system I am talking about, if I am adding a new point, say date of birth मैं उसमें add कर रही हूँ, so in order to access that record, that date of birth, अगर मुझे access कुछ करना है, उससे अगर meaningful information मुझे निकालना है, then in order to do that, I need to rewrite that program, or I need to perform the changes in that particular program in order to access that. उसके बाद में suppose in that particular file I have made some changes, मैंने उसमें कुछ student का address change किया, so again to cope up with those changes, I need to change the program every time, which is what you can say very time consuming and unnecessary, that storage and the access cost is going to incur in that. So to avoid that, our database has added a feature, or you can say a characteristic, where any, you can say the updation or any new data whenever we need to add to a particular data structure, so that is reflected everywhere, no need to change that particular program. Okay, so this point is clear to everyone. Now the next is data abstraction. So data abstraction means simply what? That is hiding the implementation details from the user. The user has only interest to the front view, आगे क्या हो रहा है. He don't know like from where he is accessing that data, how he is getting that data. He is only interested in what? Like getting that data, accessing that data, and whatever is interest to that particular user. So data abstraction is nothing but what? Hiding implementation details. Next is support of multiple views of the data. So like I told you, that is a database is designed in such a way that it has a multiple user, and each user may need a different view of database. So the database view can be the information that is stored in the database, or it is derived from that database. And the database system allows the multiple such views from the same database without letting the other user know whether the information is stored or retrieved. For example, अगर हम लोग को यहाँ पे लेना है तो like I told you in the class also, example हम लोग क्या लिख सकते हैं अपने MIS system का. So MIS, that is our management information system, also contain a database, and उसके यूजर्स भी बहुत सारे हैं. MIS डेटाबेस यूज करने वाले यूजर भी बहुत सारे हैं. Who are the user? Like student, then faculty maybe, then HOD, then principal, then parents. These are the different users. So we have the different view of that same database to these different users. जैसे student को क्या access रहेगा? Student will be having access of only, like you can say, looking at the report of their attendance, then they can give the feedback. Then to the faculties, it may be like grading to the student, then entering attendance of that particular student. Then to the HOD, they have some different privileges. To the principal, you can see all the student data, all the faculty data. So according to, you can say, the different use and different interest of that particular user, the database administrator or database designer is going to present that particular user with the different view of that data. Clear? So that is nothing but what? Support of multiple views of the data. And the last one is sharing of data and multi-user transaction processing. So as the name suggests over here, multi-user DBMS. What do you mean by that? That a database system is designed for multiple users. So when we have a multiple user, so what we are going to allow to that multiple user to access and use the database at the same time, right? Like we are using the multiple sites at you can say at the same time. Let's say for an example, IRCTC system, that is your railway reservation. So that particular system is used, multiple users are accessing that particular site at a time. But what is the problem over here? That accessing, multiple user can access that particular site at the same time, but it should not happen that the multiple users are updating the data or making changes to that particular system at the same time. So to avoid that, our database system has included some concurrency protocol in order to avoid all those problems. Means like multiple user can access the particular database at the same time, but they are not allowed to modify the same data at the same time. And to avoid all this, we have the concurrency control protocol mechanism, because of which all these problems are going to be handled. Like even if you can say the multiple user is try to modify the same database at the same time, then जो भी problem आते हैं, that can be resolved using the concurrency control protocol. So all these features are provided by our database system, which will help us in what you can say more interactively designing the different applications. So I hope you are clear with this characteristics of the database. Then in the next video, we'll see the difference between the file system and the database system. Thank you.